right, and we are live. Yes. Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wolf. Welcome to another stream. Apologies for the audio. It came to my attention yesterday that it is a bit out of sync, or not out of sync. It's a bit echoey because we're in this room, and I just can't get my audio to connect with my AirPods. So just bear with me here. We'll have Mr. Dom here do a lot of the talking, I guess, today. And we have to do a bit of a shorter stream because it's just taking forever to get this thing rolling here. But I'm excited. We can talk about the markets here a little bit, whether or not we're cooked officially cooked, or if this is just a blip in the radar, all systems a go, 4-year cycle is intact, or what exactly we're thinking here. And we'll do a little bit of Q&A as well. If you guys have any questions or thoughts, definitely drop them in the chat, and we'll get into it. So Dom, how's it going? We just jumped out of our market talk space, had some interesting discussion there with Tony and Bits and the rest of the guys. Let's get some of your input here. I see you got a chart pulled up already. We'd love to hear some thoughts from you, sir.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think it was a great conversation there. And, the consensus for a lot of people I've been following myself, and, I don't keep up with too many traders besides the ones that we speak with on the spaces and whatnot. But, it's became a pretty strong consensus, at least from what I've seen, that, the cycle is over, and this is, Bitcoin has topped, and this is it. This is what we waited for years, and, it's going to be down only now. So, I think it's a very interesting thing. And, Bits mentioned having a stream or a space about presenting the bearish and bullish arguments for whether this cycle continues or not. And I think a little, I aim to try to do a little bit of that here today, and just to try to give a bigger picture of, where we're at and what to expect over the next, few months and into the rest of the year, because it's just super hard now that we have this macro, overhang here with these tariffs, because, I think the White House just announced retaliatory tariffs again on China, over 100%, and the market is sold off. Bitcoin's now down to 76K. When we were on that stream, I think it was when we were on that space earlier, it was at like 79. And, we were talking about bearish retests and how the first bounce is usually sold off. And once again, the news comes out perfectly. It's like perfectly timed to where the stocks were up, indexes were up over 4%. And, look, they just gave back all their gains. So this is an incredibly hard time to, one, just trade on a chart. You need to be paying attention to the news. The charts obviously are going to tell you a little bit. They're going to be the bread and butter, but any little piece of news here is going to send us up 5%, send us down 5%, and it just makes a really, really confusing time, I think. One where you can't just block out the macro picture, because people say, well, there's a lot more to the sell-off than tariffs. Sure, we can make arguments that the market was overbought, and there was some time that needed to for the market to just generally pull back. But I think that the tariffs were the pin in the bubble, of course, and that's really what everybody's focused on right now. So yeah, Cade, can you still hear me here? I think we might have lost Cade there. One second here, guys.
Hey guys, I am here. It just allowed me to reset permissions. I may be able to fix this audio here on the fly. My bad, but it just like froze me for a second. But I'm here.
Okay, awesome. I didn't know if we lost you there. But yeah, I'm just sharing a post here to my audience to get some more people in here.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think what I want to do here is, I made some pretty cool charts last night, shared a few of them. Here's some more interactive ones, just kind of sharing, where are we in this cycle? Lady Trader is one of the 4-year cycle theorists that, truly believe that this cycle is going to end, in Q4. And, she has evidence to believe that, and many other people do. And the reason why is because it has not failed yet. It's like when we have a repeating pattern, you could expect it to fail. And I'm even, under the impression myself that, the 4-year cycles are definitely questionable whether they will continue. But, to put it simply, they haven't failed us, so we could sit here and say, the cycle's over, and, doom and gloom. But technically speaking, if we go off the only things we have, which is historical data, they have not failed yet. So that's kind of what I'm going to present here with the first chart I have here. This first chart here is actually one of the charts that I used to actually predict the bottom back at 16K in 2022. It was one of the super useful charts. If we zoom in right here, we see this color here. This is basically day 916 from the halving. So if we reset this chart here and go back to this bottom here, what was this? Day 9, about 900. So if you look there, those are about the same colors. We have like that yellow, and then exact same concept down at this low. What is that? About day 900, So that was one of the reasons. And I know it's funny. It's like drawing a chart based on the days until the halving, which there's many arguments that the halving is, completely irrelevant. People believe it's just liquidity cycles, or it's, even the election, the 4-year election in the United States. And, but yeah, this was one of the charts that I used back then to say, it was one of like 5 pieces of confluence when we were down here after the FTX crash. I was like, this lines up perfectly to where we were in the past. And the same thing for the tops as well, which is pretty immaculate. If you look here, what is this? This was day 371 since the halving. And actually this one isn't a full cycle, so we can't really look at that perfectly. But if we look at this here, this was day 525. I think that this right here, this 69K was like day 540 or day 527. So, those tops came in at a perfect time since the halving. And, these white circles here kind of show us where we are now compared to the past cycles. So where we are now based on the days until the halving, or days since the last halving, is right here in 2021, and then is right here in 2017. So obviously prices did go higher. And then if we go back to 2012 or 2013, prices did go higher from where we were now. Prices did go higher from where we were now. And then obviously prices did go higher. So that's one of the arguments that, the length of this cycle is not as long as any of the other cycles. And technically speaking, we can't say that this failed until October of this year. So that's the first chart. The second chart here is a super cool chart. It actually is a normalized Bitcoin price, plotting each cycle based on the days since the cycle bottom. So if we look here, this orange line here was the 2021 run. This blue purple line here is the 2017 run. And then this green line is where we are right now. So if you look, technically speaking, each time that we were at this point in the cycle, the last 2 cycles, Bitcoin did go higher, and it topped out at about day 1066. And it's actually incredible how both of the last cycles, they were like perfect. This was 2017. We hit 19,800. This was basically 69K in November of 2021. It's like when I saw this, I'm like, whoa, I'm like, they're actually that perfect. And you see where we are right now. We're at day like 871 since the bottom. So this right here also is, it's kind of supporting someone like Lady Trader's thesis that, the market isn't going to top until Q4. And once again, I'm not saying either or. I'm just presenting the data here that yes, technically speaking, this would be the shortest cycle. And technically speaking, we do still have, 100, 200 days left before we're at the point where it's like, okay, this would now be the longest cycle. The top should have already been in by now. So this one right here is a super interesting chart to me. And then this right here is the normalized Bitcoin price cycle based on the halving. So if you take the price action after each cycle when the halving happened and you lay them over each other, similar concept. We can see right here, this is where 2021 topped out. This is where 2017 topped out. And this is where 2013 or 2012 topped out. But once again, this is like a mini cycle. It wasn't a full cycle. So it's hard to kind of say that that's the exact level. But once again, supporting the idea that we have not reached that amount of time. Time is an important thing when you're looking at charts. And we haven't reached that time where it's like, okay, if we were in October right now and all this was happening,
Mhm.
I would be 85% sure that the top was in, without a doubt.
Wow.
But something like this type of data makes you think like, okay, is this just a macro shakeout? Are these tariffs going to be temporary? Are there going to be pullbacks of these tariffs? Are there going to be, major deals made to where the market starts breathing again, the stock market? And if so, it kind of lines up perfectly for a high to happen in September, October, November, which once again just lines up perfectly with all of these charts that I'm sharing right here. So yeah, and then the next thing here I wanted to share is this is the 30-day rolling volatility since basically Bitcoin's inception. And it kind of pushes on the point that this cycle has been very steady. It's been very it's grown in a way where, of course, we've had 10-20% moves, but if you compare them to last cycle and the previous cycles, you see how big of these volatility swings they were.
Oh yeah.
It's like, if I don't know if I can draw on this chart here, but since 2020, volatility just been continued to decline. And this is because of the ETFs, in my opinion. And then if you look at this chart right here, this kind of shows as well. You see how like compressed the green cycle, which is us right now, has been compared to orange. You see how we had this wide push up compared to blue. We had this big dump. Same concept here, orange big dump. This has just been like a straight line, kind of very compressed, and it kind of just proves this point right here that volatility is super, super low. So it just brings up the question of, pretty simply, is Bitcoin already topped? If so, it would be the shortest cycle ever. And, do we believe that the 4-year cycles are still in play? If so, then that supports the idea that Bitcoin, can go higher towards the end of this year. And this is the data to support that. So the people that believe the cycle is going to continue and the people that believe that Bitcoin is going to go higher, this is the data for you. This is the data that kind of supports that thesis right there. So yeah, I don't know. Do you any questions about it, Kate? Any thoughts?
Yeah. So, well, first off, please tell me the audio is even 1% better. I think I was able to switch over to my earphone mic. I don't know if it's true. If it's better, please tell me.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Wait, is it not super echoey, or are you just trying to make me feel better?
No, it's better.
Oh, dude, thank God. Okay. Yeah, I was messing with that a little bit in the background the first couple minutes there, but looks like I'm back. So, dude, first off, solid analysis. For anybody who's watching right now, definitely give Dom a follow. If you're on X, it's right above our faces. If you're on YouTube, it's down below the description. If you like trading content, he does a lot of it, and he comes to a lot of our spaces as well if you like live content. Tracking along with these charts, you're right. That was like the first thing I noticed was what year is the red cycle? Is this a 2018 cycle? They're almost like backwards. They're like inverted almost. I don't think it means to be inverted. It's just like you just mentioned, the volatility is so high at that point versus right now it feels so suppressed. That is a really interesting observation. What do you think? So from this point though, it looks like big decisions were made, like literally right here. Mm-hmm. What do you think is that timing locked in with one of the big meetings? Is that what usually causes this? Because it looks like that right there is a big moment to decide whether or not we're going lower first or if we're going to go higher first in the more short term.
Yeah, without a doubt, it definitely was. And I think that the key difference here of why we can't put too much weight is because you could see the velocity. These are normalized price. So essentially it's taking a normalized scale to kind of show you it's not percentage based because it would be way too skewed, but it's normalized. And you look at how drastic the 2021 run was compared to us right now. That'd be Bitcoin at this is at 5. That'd be Bitcoin at about, what is this? This would be Bitcoin at like 400K if it followed the velocity of the 2021 bull cycle. If it followed the velocity of the 2018 to 2017 bull cycle, it would be just about there as well. So this was absolutely a turning point. Both of these cycles at this point in the cycle kind of went through a little consolidation phase for about 50 days, and then they went on their last legs. And like I said, this dotted line right here lines up to about October 20th. So this would be October 20th where we are now. This would probably be like June, July. So, chop until June, July, crazy, ending in October. That's what would line up in the previous cycles. And, like I said, I'm not, putting all my thesis on this. It's not like, everything's putting on this, but I'm going to share the data for one reason. It hasn't failed. I think it's that simple. People that are calling tops right now or already called the tops in, that's completely fine. There's a great chance that they are correct and that the top is already in. We could share, and even over the last few months, I have not been overly bearish. I presented definitely opportunities and scenarios where Bitcoin would break down and fill the void that we basically have seen happen the past 2 months. But, I wasn't under the impression that, this is completely the top until and unless 70K is completely lost. That's been my thesis since the start of the year. And it's really a technical backed thesis. And once we switch over to the charts, you guys will see exactly why I've thought that and, why I believe that. Because technically speaking, Bitcoin is still in a bull run. Technically speaking, its bull trend is still intact. If you want to call tops, if you want to call it over, that's fine. You're just being a little bit early. And if it plays out perfectly, you're going to look really smart. And like I said, I've done that before as well. When I called the bottom here, or I should say, when I provided a strong thesis that the bottom was in here, it was harder to do that because all we saw was downtrending. Same concept of calling the top at 108K, but that played out perfectly. Here, it's a much more confusing and different time, in my opinion. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything more, but we'll.
So you're saying if we drop below, by a certain date, if we drop below and lose the 70K range, is what you're saying, or if we lose it at all, then it's over?
No, if we lose it at all, technically speaking, once again, going off of all the past data, the bull trend is broke. And the trend that we've established since 15K is out the door. And I don't, in that thought, it doesn't really matter what kind of TA you do. It doesn't matter what kind of analyst you are. You can't deny that the structure is broken if we accept below 70K. Like,
what kind of trades will you be making if we lose that? Are we free fall in terms of like TAs out the door, pure reaction scalping, or what happens in terms of strategy?
Yeah, it's a good question. Recently, obviously, my trading strategy has turned more to short term. It's turned more to range trading, mean reversion, not really trying to catch trends. Trend following trading started in November, ended in mid-December. It was a very short time for that. So, my strategies will continue to be short-lived until we kind of see, stronger thesis of, okay, are we breaking below 50K, or, are we going to now, regain that 70K and try to start this trend again? But I think that the important thing to note here is Saylor. If Michael Saylor's entry gets breached,
I know, dude. I'm so scared.
It's hard for me to say and see no mass panic. Like it would be very hard for me to not see that. Who knows? That might mark a bottom. But it's like if Michael Saylor, the talk of the town, borrowing tens of billions of dollars, is now net negative on this 5-year Bitcoin strategy. In my eyes, he failed. That doesn't mean that he won't win in another few years, but in my eyes, he failed. If you started buying Bitcoin at 8 to 10K and you, for whatever reason, are now flat on your profit, you messed up. And I don't think that that's up for discussion. Any investor would agree. If you buy an asset that's up almost 1,000% over the last 5 years, and somehow you mismanage yourself to lose all your profit by doing an inverse martingale strategy, that's not a good look. So if we breach that 70K once again, we got more headwinds that, okay, now Saylor's, say Saylor lost all his money, Saylor lost all his profit. What now? So once we hop over the charts, I'm going to share a little bit more insight on that.
Cool.
So let me do that now. Unless you had any other questions or anything else to pick about these 3 charts, because they're super cool charts. I mean, these are.
Yeah, I love these. What is this on, by the way? This is
these are some files I actually created myself.
Oh, nice, dude. Hell yeah, I love that.
Yeah, they're actually some cool files I created myself, especially this one right here. This one's just super interesting.
I love that.
Just laying over basically the cycles since the bottom was put in, and just saying, okay, where are we based on the previous 2 cycles? Oh, yeah. They both kind of say the same thing, which is we zoom in right here. They both say we're right here, and we might have some chop, and if not, prices should go higher over the next 150 days. And this is kind of where all the 4-year cycle theory theorists are going to be proven right or wrong. You know,
Oh,
I
boy.
I told Lady Trader yesterday, if this happens and this plays out perfectly, she deserves a crown, because this has been her thesis the entire
Yep.
time. And people that stick to their thesis and watch it play out, and that is that's a it's a pretty good and impressive approach, because of how simple the idea is, like how
I agree.
simple this 4-year cycle idea is. So yeah, let me share my other chart here, and then we'll pull it back into
Yeah.
more
that
of
works.
a broader view here. So let me know if you can see this chart here. Fine.
Yep. All right. That's it. And we're back.
Beautiful. So yeah, so essentially, for all you guys that are watching that have followed me for some time, I was not, and I'll say it cleanly, I was not overly bearish when we were hitting these tops up here, because, at that point, it's like, okay, we can continue. Things didn't look too shaky at that time. The time where I threw in the towel of my bullish thesis was right here. And the reason why is because, there was a mass imbalance in the order book, where there was so many sell orders up here and very little buy orders down here. So this is when I started sounding the alarm that Bitcoin was probably going to break the 90K range. And essentially my thesis back then was we were going to fill this inefficient liquidity void move. So this whole move up after the election was what we call inefficient. There was no value established within this region. So what happens is we usually fill it right on the way down. And that's what happened. Bitcoin didn't spend too much time. It did it really quick. It filled all the way back down. And here we go. We're basically filling that entire liquidity void. So now, since that happened, since we had the 90K range breakdown, my thesis was very simple once again. I said, okay, what in the past has told us whether the bull cycle was over or not? And the first thing here was the rolling VWAP, was the yearly rolling VWAP. So we can see here, I don't have all the data here because I'm using this HTX chart, but you can see right here, this is the yearly rolling VWAP. And right when we broke this, the bear market was confirmed. And of course, we know what happened after that. Once we broke that level, Bitcoin fell down 75%. So, that's obviously a bear market.
Yeah.
And then same concept right here. The entire bull market, we held this green line perfectly too. I mean, look at how perfect. You couldn't ask for a better line to call your bull market band. Absolutely perfect bounce there. Same thing with the 50-week moving average. This is the 50-week EMA. We did have a little bit of time spent underneath it, but if you put it as a band, technically speaking, we could say on super high time frames, price did hold that, just had a little fake out below. And once again, same concept of, back in November 2021 or a little bit after, right when we lost this is when the bear market was confirmed. We can see how we lost this and then we accepted below. See, that's the important thing. The important thing isn't just losing it and regaining it. It's losing it and accepting below. And that's exactly what we saw happen back in 2022. So once this happened, obviously, we all knew that the bear market, was started, or at least I did. And I said, not looking good. And then we had Terra Luna, Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, push us down here. And right here, this was actually one of the times you've never seen me bearish, Cade, because
oh God, dude, I'm not you and Lady Trader. I have not seen bearish yet. That will be a totally interesting, different dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, I've obviously been bearish for a few days or like a few weeks, but you haven't seen me like macro.
Oh man.
And this right here was actually the time where I was like calling for actually another leg down, because everybody here, if you're around, they all thought that this was the bottom. And for whatever reason, I of course didn't know FTX would crash, but I was looking at this in a bear market pattern. I mean, a bear flag pattern. And this is right when I started posting on Twitter, actually. And I posted this chart and I was like, until proven wrong, Bitcoin is still in a bearish pattern and these are bear flags. So of course, once we had this bear flag breakdown and this happened, that's when I changed my tone and said, okay, we have enough evidence that this is probably a low on Bitcoin. And of course, that was the bottom. And right when we regained these levels, that's when the bull market started again.
Wow.
So now fast forward to where we're at now, I hope I'm not losing anyone, but right when we regained this, this was our bull market. So we regained it, regained the 50-week moving average, bam, bull market, right? Same thing right here, held both the levels perfectly, held the yearly rolling VWAP perfectly, bam, bull market. And then look where we're at now. It's like That's why I've been saying over the last few months, we can't call it quits based on price action, based on historical data, that it's over. It is over, in my opinion, when we accept below these 4 major regions. So the first one is this trend line. We can see this trend line is perfect from the last 2 cycles. I mean, sorry, the previous cycle, 2 tops right here. And then we have the horizontal support line. So we have the March highs right here. This is basically 70, 71 to, about 74. We have this here. We have that horizontal line. And then we have the 50-week moving average and the yearly rolling VWAP. And the yearly rolling VWAP is kind of hard because it's based on volume. So like if we go on different charts, they're a little bit different. You see how this one's at 76.3. This one on Bybit is at 76.1. Like we could continue to go. The difference in volume, like look at on Mexi, this one's at 75. So like once again, we don't really care about the exact number. It's the range. It's the range itself. And that's really why, in my opinion, it's like we're teetering on the edge of a confirmed bear trend. Bear market, different story. We don't know if this is going to be the same as the past, but what we do know is that the trend broke because the entire way up, anytime that we regained, say that this was a resistance, we regained it, we retested it. Say that this was a resistance, we regained it, we retested it. Resistance, never needed to retest it. Right here, regained this, broke it, did this, retested it. So you see how that's like a staircase concept? So let's apply the staircase concept to right now. Bitcoin breaks out, it comes back down. We can't call it quits until it's accepting below these levels. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. I think it's the simplest way you can look at the chart right now. And it's hard. It's tough because, to be honest with you, we're either going to look back in October and say, wow, you should have just acted bearish right here. And in October, we're going to be down here or something. Or this is going to just base out like this. And in October, we're going to be above 100K. It's like those are really the 2 scenarios. And you're going to have to try to pick your decision right now. It's like, that's the point where we are at, in my honest opinion, is like, you're either putting your chips on the table and saying that, this trend will continue and this is the biggest shakeout that we've seen, or, just like Tony the Bull said, it's over, maybe like Bits. I don't know. Bits is now he's in like this murky middle ground to where
I know
he called this move. I will 100% give him that. He said there's a very good chance that we retest 75K, and Price said it. OX bad Price. Calvin even said it. He said, I get super bullish if Bitcoin hits 75K.
Yep.
But look, we're at those levels now. And, I'm not calling anyone out, but, are we going to continue to keep that thesis that this is a bullish thing that's happening right now? And I think that's really the only questions we have here. So let me know if you have any thoughts on that, Cade, and if you want me to expand on anything.
Well, I was going to say you played it out perfectly. Like if you zoom out a little bit, even like the staircase model you mentioned was super good because it basically just shows level by level. Everything in between before the next run up is just progress. Like it bounced up a level, then it does a bunch of stuff, then it bounced up a level, and does a bunch of stuff. But until it breaks the trend again and just fully invalidates that and says, okay, new strategy, it's basically just, it doesn't really matter until then. We're just sitting here waiting for it basically. And it feels like every time we get in these waiting periods, it feels longer and longer. And I think because there are so many, I think it's because like it must be like the tariff conversation that if everything feels really urgent right now. And so it's like we need to have an answer really quickly. But sometimes these things take a little while to play out. Like in terms of when we think we'll get this either retest and we bounce up and we continue the trend as, business as usual, in which case Calvin would be probably very happy. He'll continue adding to his long-term shorts, but he entered the long, probably a pretty big long here, a 75. And by the way, I'm not sure when his exit is for that trade. I don't know if he means to get out relatively quickly and he's just loaded up on leverage. What he means there. But I imagine if he loaded up on a big long at 75K, he's looking for another run up to the next level.
Totally.
By the way, do we know if Calvin is, does he believe in the 4-year cycle still?
I'm not totally sure. I don't think we talked about that. Maybe we can touch on it more on our next space. But no, you're absolutely right there. I mean, that's really the question that we're at right now. And it's like, I don't know. It's like I want to make it as simple as we can. and just give you guys the data that it's like, no, we don't have confirmation yet that this bull cycle is over, but we literally are hanging on the edge by a string.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we've just never lost these levels and continued in a bull cycle. Like, let me go on a deeper chart here. If we go on the index, like, oh, wow. Yeah. Here's my super busy chart that kind of shares
Oh boy.
the concept as well. It's like, here's the entire 2017 run. You see how we stayed above the yellow and the green. Right when we lost it, bear trend started, we dropped 60%. Same concept right here. I know this is a busy chart, but just take a look at the yellow and the green. Held the yellow and the green, held it right there, held it, lost it, bear trend started. Same thing right here. Held the yellow and the green. Look where we're at right now. It's like the same level that we were at in August when everybody thought it was over. And it's like, this is where legends are going to be made. If this ends up being the low, then, you know, I mean, this is the ultimate buying opportunity right now. You know, there's no other way to put it, is if the things I shared earlier in the stream about how we do technically have until October and how every cycle normalized and looked at based on time and days since the bottom and the halving did go higher from this point on, this right here is going to be the low. And sure, we can see this, we can see that. That's fine. That's not acceptance. You know, that's not acceptance. We could see that. We can base out. We could do this. And then, you know, by the time October comes, maybe we're at 150K. But right within this rate region is going to be the low if this cycle is not broken. And I think that the only other thing that I could really share on this is, you know, we don't have the same fundamental reasons. Sure, it could be a new fundamental reason like the tariffs. Maybe the tariffs are the thing that pushes us in this bear market. But if you look at 2017, that bear market happened because every single coin went up 100,000% in 2 years. Yeah. You know, they needed to come down. They went up way too much. In 2021, that bear market, in my opinion, started because the Fed changed its tone. It started raising rates crazy. It stopped quantitative easing. It stopped printing money. And the stocks went into a bear market as well. Right now, we don't have that. We have the rates hopefully heading down. We have the dollar hopefully continuing to head down. And we have the money printer hopefully maybe getting a little bit activation happening in the next 6 months. So we have the complete opposite tailwinds now than we had headwinds in 2022. So it's a really big difference in the macro picture. And to try to say, like, you know, the reasoning for the bear market is something that has to do with liquidity. Right now, we have that in our favor, if that makes sense.
How far can we go below this? Like, what is the region we actually get to play around in between this previous accumulation from the highs to the lows there? Do we have that whole area to play around in before we know? Or is it like, okay, we lose this level, it goes too low, we're out of the trend officially?
Yeah, so it's a good question here. And this is the best way I can pose it is I love to use volume profiles. I'm sure you've seen me talk about them. Volume profile here is just draw one from here to here as well. This is, well, I'm sure people remember, this is why I thought if we broke 85K, we would come all the way down to where we hit, is because of this liquidity void. You can see there was no price established in there. So guess what? We basically filled it perfectly. So I think it's simple. If prices come down to the 70K, see how we're at the top of that value area? That is still considered a retest. It just can't be like we're spending time like this. Like if we do this, like, and then no, that's bearish. We don't want to make a bear flag here. Yeah. If we do get this last push down, we want to see a V right back to where we're at right now. That would be fine. That would be cool. The problem is if we breach Saylor's entry at about 68, look what happens. We're right back into that previous 8-month value range. And any time, 90% of the time, when we accept back into previous value, we go to the other side of value. Yeah. So that means we're going down to 60 to 55K. And then guess what happens? We start establishing value right back where we established it over the summer. And it's like, we're back in this range. Whatever happens here, whatever is going to happen there, but we are back in that range.
Wow.
So I hope that answers your question. I don't know if that was the exact.
Yeah, it does.
thing you were wondering. But yes, we can see a very quick move. And one of the analysts I follow and just had a space with yesterday actually is X-Force Global, his name is. He believes we're going to hit 68K, and that's going to be the mega V shape, and then that's going to lead us to new highs by the end of the year. He's a super technical Elliott wave theory trader, and his concept is also the same, that we can't accept down there. It needs to be very short-lived. It's kind of like tapping Sailor's entry, having all of the news headlines going around, and then bam, just V-shaping, and that marks the bottom for our next leg up into the end of the year. Those are kind of the scenarios, because once we get acceptance back into this value area, in my opinion, it's the chances we go higher this year become much slimmer, much slimmer. But right now, I still think there's a greater than 50% chance, as long as this holds, Bitcoin will go higher by the end of the year.
I don't know what it is about my mental that just can't seem to see that path up. I just my brain is so much more in line with Tony's analysis that I don't know. I just don't know, dude. I don't know. This is a very confusing cycle.
Oh, totally.
I guess I can see Lady Trader's perspective only because it has worked every single cycle, but I just can't get over the fact that everything's so different now. But the main thing you mentioned there is that every catalyst that sent us down is opposite. And I'm like, okay, if that's the case, we should reverse here. I just the main thing I'm playing in my head is I just don't know if you're not already in locked in positions at much lower prices, I don't know if entering the market in almost any scenario makes any sense right now. It was the same thing I asked with one of my buddies in the stock market. He was like, yeah, I'm not really entering trades right now. He goes, because there could be upside. He goes, there probably will be. He goes, but we're 2 years, we're 2, 3, 4 years into basically up only. He goes, it's not the greatest time to enter if you're looking to make anything longer than a couple months of trading. So
I would agree with you there. But what will, like I said, if the 4-year cycle theorists are correct, and the concept that we've been talking about and been looking at earlier in the stream is correct, this is your time to buy. This is going to be the time to buy. It's maybe you get another few $1,000s lower, maybe another 5,000, but this would be the low. I just can't see a scenario where we come down to 50K and then run it right back up. I mean, that to me is that would just be an odd way for the chart to move. And if that happens, then at that point, I'm never going to look at past history on Bitcoin again, because all of it is completely out the door at that point. And it's everything we ever use doesn't work anymore. And, that enters a way different scenario. So on your point though, this is what I was trying to share is if we hide the indicators here, see when this bear market started here, this was the bear market, right? This is when Bitcoin hit 69K. This was down to 15K. Look at the dollar.
Wow.
The dollar exploded. Look at when the Fed started raising rates right here. Look at what rates did. They exploded. So both of these went up as the bear market occurred, right? So if you look at that right now, we have the complete opposite scenario. We have rates coming down, and we have the dollar coming down. Rates down, dollar down. So it's not the same scenario. And that, once again, is why it makes it way harder to call a top. And even it makes it way harder to call that, the bull cycle is still on, because we have these complete opposite, metrics. It's if the dollar was rallying right now and was looking like it was breaking out and was way up here, if the Fed said rates are still going higher, I would be very much in line with Tony that we're cooked. We are cooked. But it's when we don't have those things against us, that's how it makes it so much more confusing. And it's just a hard time. I mean, it truly, truly is. I don't care what anyone says. I've been analyzing this market almost every single week, basically since right here. When Bitcoin was at 2K, I watched this run 20K. And this is when I became super into crypto. Right here is when I started, sharing my own charts and had a few different groups. And even started doing live streams and things like that. And I've watched all of these moves happen. And right here is the most confusing time since I started, without a doubt. And that's why I don't have any shame in, not being perfect here, because it's a hard time. Like, all the things that worked in the past, they just don't work anymore.
Yeah.
They just really, they don't work anymore. And I'm still under I'm still in the idea of like, okay, what is going to work? What is going to break? What is going to work? So yeah, I mean, I hope that makes sense for anyone. Throw in some more questions. I'd love to answer some questions for anyone who's watching.
Yeah, definitely. I see one here actually from Aiden. He's saying, how about if there's a retrace instead from 72K level and not a new trend?
Yeah, that's super possible as well. I think what he's trying to say is we could just get something like this and then something like that. That's possible. Well, without a doubt, that's possible. But
that actually looks a lot like what I was thinking. My brain makes a lot that makes a lot more sense in my brain.
Sure.
Because that would be like the ultimate fake out. Like, oh, we rebounded exactly where we're supposed to. It's up only from here. I just like we've been rejected so many times at that same level. I don't know what would break us through at this point. We've gotten every bullish catalyst except the money printer, I guess, where money printer goes burr and people say, okay, it's time to load up. But like,
yep.
I don't know. Every other announcement has failed. So I'm like, well, that one failed too.
Yeah. That goes back to our spaces all within here. We kept saying, why isn't the news doing anything?
Yeah.
Why isn't the news doing anything? Well, we figured out why, because Bitcoin was inevitably going lower.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept here. It definitely is an interesting thought. And I see someone said U.S. oil dropping is good for inflation, though, right? Yeah, it is good for inflation, but inflation, technically speaking, Bitcoin doesn't care about inflation unless there's money printing happening. Like if the printers start going up because inflation's down, great. Bitcoin will benefit from that. But if inflation's down but printers are still off, Bitcoin doesn't care. It doesn't really care much at all.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
So yeah, I don't know if there's too much more to really expand on this idea and concept here. I mean, there's I don't know much more to say about it.
The TSLA Satoshi is asking if whales are selling or buying. If there's any indicators you have for whales.
Not necessarily. No, I don't have any specific. Besides maybe the long-term holder, which actually I do have one thing we could look at, which I haven't even looked at myself in a bit. Let's see if we could pop this up here. Give me 1 second.
Yep, you're good. Got it? Or let me know when you're ready.
Yes. Can you see it over there?
I can, yeah. Are you ready? I saw you were typing something. Okay, cool.
Yeah, let's see here. So the only thing we could really look at is we could look at Bitcoin with the wallets. We could look at the wallets holding in a certain amount of Bitcoin. So if we go to address count holding over, let's do 0.1. We'll do 1, 10, and then we could do 100. This is really all we have to look at for whales, other than looking at the actual order flow itself. So this right here shows the wallets holding over 0.1 Bitcoin. And we actually talked about this, Cade, 2 months ago on my stream. And we were, I don't know if you remember, but we said, retail or whoever is actually selling off their Bitcoin. Actually, yeah, this started in November. And then in December, we could see the amount of wallets holding over 0.1 Bitcoin was actually dropping. It was actually dropping pretty strongly. So that's not whales, but we could concur from that. Same concept here. We're not really seeing any action. So, no crazy buying or no crazy selling. Really the wallets are just stationary. So let's look at 10. 10, similar concept. No one's really buying and there's not too much selling happening. And this is back in 2024. And then we can look at 100 Bitcoin. Well, it's over 100 Bitcoin actually. Wow. I don't even know if I've even seen this recently.
Wow.
They added
Jeez.
they added a lot since November.
Wow.
And they've actually been adding since March as well. So I don't know. This is probably your best whale indicator. They have been buying. I'm not sure exactly who that would be, but yeah, it looks like they have been adding. And then let's see 1,000. 1,000's a little skewed because I mean, if you're holding 1,000 Bitcoin on one wallet, that's pretty rare. Let's see what that looks like. 1,000 is actually jumping up too. Wow. Huh.
1,000 Bitcoin?
Yeah. So there's only 2,000 wallets that hold over 1,000 Bitcoin. So 1,000 Bitcoin right now, what is that? 80 million? I think it's 80 million. Since March 2040. So about 50 people, 50 wallets have been added to that whole basis of holding over 1,000 Bitcoin. So that's really all we can say about that. No, these are not exchanges. This is looking at the blockchain. So anyone who's holding wallets on self-custody wallets, unfortunately, we don't have the data with exchanges. They don't share that data.
Dang.
Let's see.
I see a couple more here. So according to the order books, is it easier to go upside now or downside?
Great question. That was actually the one thing I forgot to talk about. So that is one concept of why everything I just talked about the last 20 minutes about this area, it's being supported in the order books. You can see all these orders down here. We got about 1,000 Bitcoin, at least in big walls here. If we go to the order books here, we change this scale to 500. We got about 1,500 Bitcoin, 10% below us. And we only have 500 Bitcoin, 10% above us. So there's about 3 times more people that want to buy 10% lower than 3 times more people that want to, or than the people that want to buy 10% higher, if that makes any sense. So the order books do support at least some type of bounce, regardless, coming in at this level we've been looking at for months. This right here is the 70K level. We can see all these orders that are sitting, right? So if we come down here, we're going to have some passive bids that are going to support us. And these are people that have obviously been waiting since February to get their orders filled. So this right here does support the concept. And you can see with the bid skew right here, this is kind of showing us within a 25% price range. This bid skew has been historically bullish. Look when this bid skew first flashed after the ETF low, perfectly marked the low there. The bid skew flashed right here, perfectly marked this low. Bid skew flashed right here, right before the August low. Bid skew also flashed right at the August low. Bid skew flashed really strongly at our last low since at 50, what was this, 52K before we went to 109K. And then look, we've been sitting up here for a while, meaning there's a lot of people that want to actually purchase Bitcoin right here. This is on Coinbase. And then the other piece of analysis to add on to this is Binance. So if we look at Binance here, Binance shows a similar concept, not as strongly, but they definitely show a similar concept of trading like and load here. There we go. So you can see here, we do have a nice stack of orders. I mean, this is, basically since 3 days ago, we had 600 Bitcoin down to, let's just do down to 70K. We had about 400 Bitcoin. Now we have 2,000 Bitcoin that are sitting below us right now. That's a large amount. That is a large amount. That's a lot. The last time we saw that much Bitcoin was actually at the 52K low right here. See this 2.9 thousand Bitcoin? See how they got added as price started going down? So it's actually a similar concept in the order books right now. And to answer your question, it is easier to go up, but that means bulls need to step up. So to put this in perspective, this is why I love the order books, guys. Say I had $100 million, right? $100 million deployed in this market right now would cause almost a 2 times greater impact on the upside than if I had $100 million of Bitcoin that I wanted to sell. So to put it in perspective, say I deploy $100 million in Bitcoin, say price for example purposes go up 10%. That same $100 million sold probably would only cause us to go down 5%. So it gives a gauge of effort, and you could see the order book is completely clear back to 84K. I mean, we could push up 10% with bull stepping right in, and that's why it's crazy with where we're at here with this tariff stuff, if Trump walks back these tariffs on China, because China is the biggest one, you know, we get all of our stuff from China. If he walks them back, Bitcoin will send it right back to 85K. Like we would blink our eyes and it'd be back up there. And that's kind of just the weird place that we're at in this type of, you know, this type of downtrend. It's like, when have you ever been in a place where one person can say one word or one sentence and cause $1 trillion assets to go up 10% or down 10%? You know? Yeah, no, we're in absurd times. Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre. So to answer the question finally, the order books are bullish. You know, I'm not going to deny the order books are bullish. I mean, you could see what happens when a bunch of orders come through. Like, look, 5,000 Bitcoin after the ETF low. This is one of my best call outs I had over the last, you know, year. I actually bought the ETF right here about 39K, and I'm still holding those ETF purchases just because I don't think Bitcoin will ever go below 38K unless we have a super big black swan. But the reason why too is because, look, we had all of these orders sitting down there. I mean, you see all these yellow lines. And then similar concept right when we hit even these lows. See all these orders right here. See all these orders? They cause lows. Orders right here, they cause lows. Same concept right here. Orders, they cause lows. And then the whole time up, I mean, we didn't have much, you know, there was not much. This entire range, we did not have much. The orders really started kicking in down here, and they really started kicking in right here. I mean, you could see like, wow, look at that. This shows the graph of time based on the orders within that range. So since April 6th at about 12 p.m., somebody said, okay, let's start deploying our orders here down to 58K, down to 60K. And now, you know, we have a nice stack there. So once again, it proves my thesis that even if Bitcoin is cooked and the top is in, I still want to believe that even if we see this down to 70, I still want to believe we're going to see something like this, even if we're going to go lower. Like it's hard for me to be extraordinarily bearish at a level I've been watching for months, and at a level where you don't need to be an expert to, let's see here. Trading Light it's a great platform, but that's so cool that they are so laggy. Right here we could see like this is that level. It's like, are you going to be bearish at a 8-month resistance zone when we're trying to retest it as support? Might work out. Totally might work out. But like, you know, technically speaking, this is the level we should be looking for some type of bounce. And that's been my tone since we broke 90K. You know, I have not changed my thesis at all. I've tried to stay really in line ever since we had that breakdown. And my thesis is going to stay until it's invalidated, because I just presented all the data why. It's like we have things that tell us Bitcoin can go higher. You know, we have some evidence. The evidence has not failed us just yet. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense to you guys. It's really all I have for today. I think that that's really a great, you know, breakdown on where we're at, what to expect, what can happen, and the technical regions. Like we're on the cusp of breaking levels that have always triggered a bear market. And, you know, that's really what I believe. And even so, that's why I asked Tony earlier, like, what does he expect if this is, the top is in? Like, what does he expect? Does he expect this? Like, are we actually coming back down to 20K? Are we coming back down to 25K? Or does he just expect, you know, you know, like something like this? And then we eventually go higher. You know, it's
everybody would be getting liquidated. Every big player, all the ETFs, that would be probably that potentially. I think it was on the space. They're like, that would be the worst. And didn't he say the longest bear market if that happens? If we end up just straight down, is that what he said? Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. So I would not be mad if that happened. I really wouldn't, because I'm mainly cash right now. But I still would be absolutely shocked to just be in a situation. And by the way, apologies for everyone on audio video right now. I just noticed I've been on Wi-Fi the whole time, so chances are I'm super blurry and not in the highest quality right now. And my audio has been like all over the place, but I just moved, so that's my excuse. But that would be pretty insane. Do they have the amount? Like, we have a pro crypto president, a Bitcoin strategic reserve, a crypto stockpile strategic reserve, We have Bitcoin, American Bitcoin being created via a HUD 8 and the Donald Trump partnership. We have quite literally every great thing you could want, and we are on the teetering edge of a cliff potentially, or we're about to set it off. But if we were to go back to the 20, 30, 40K mark with that amount of catalysts, it would probably line up the most insane bull run of all time, though, following that, correct? Like if you were able to pick up on those prices, it should put this run even to shame.
It could, but if you want me to make a prediction,
let's do it. Prediction time, baby. Everyone get your notepads out. Dom's going to make a big prediction here.
Bitcoin should never go below 38K again. And if it does, there's a big structural problem. And I think that at that point, the cycles are over. The 15-year logarithmic trend is done. There's a serious problem then with Bitcoin's chart. And I do have some data to support that, actually. So if we take this off, this is going to be the last thing I share here. There's been this super cool thing where our previous cycle's halving the previous cycle halving VWAP is never lost. So 2016 cycle's halving. If we go ahead the full cycle, forward, which is the 2021 cycle, that cycle's bottom, look where it landed. See where it landed right there? Perfectly on that 2016 halving VWAP. So if we go to now and we look back at the next cycle's halving VWAP, that lands perfectly at 38K. Why I love 38K? That was the low of the ETFs. Look at that. That perfectly lines up to the low of the ETFs. I don't think Larry Fink, who has they have $45 billion, $40 billion in ETFs. I don't think that they're going to let all of their clients go net negative on Bitcoin unless we're in a global market recession, depression, black swan to where everything's crashing. They're not going to care about Bitcoin. But with how much ammo the Fed still has, I don't think they're going to let that happen. There's people calling for this depression. People are calling we're completely over. People don't realize the Fed has so much ammo. They haven't even been printing. They have so much ammo that this house of cards can go on for another 10 to 15 years. No problems at all. They drop rates back to zero. They turn the printers back on. These markets will just send it right back up. So that's my prediction. Bitcoin should never go below 38K. It really shouldn't. So if Tony's right, and this was the top and we are entering a bear market, I would expect this bear market to look like this. That's what I would expect. I don't think Bitcoin is ever going to go below 38K, because if it does, we got a serious problem on our hands.
Do you think if we do end up having Tony's plan play out, which looks kind of similar to mine, that we do in fact touch as low as 38K, or do you think we got a low above that little region?
I think we could touch it, absolutely, but I don't think we would breach it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think we would breach it. And once again, why that is because of the thesis that we should never go below the two cycles before halving. So if you look, like I said, this cycle here, one cycle. This cycle's halving. And what was the first halving? 2012? I think it was, December 2012? You should know this.
I think so.
You talked about Bitcoin maxis.
Yeah.
What is it?
I do.
October 2012? Do you know?
We actually did this on a previous stream. It was first coin halving date was, I believe it was December. I swear it's December. November 28th, 2012.
Okay, November 28th, 2012. Okay, so here is my last piece of evidence to support this thesis, and it's a super strong thesis here. Once TradingView loads here. So exact same concept about how, one second here. So you see here, to 2012 halving, we throw a VWAP on it, right? We never went below that. 2016 halving, we throw a VWAP on that. We never went below that. 2012's or 2020's halving, throw a VWAP on that. We should never go below that. Because at that point, there's a structural problem with Bitcoin. The entire reason why Bitcoin has grown the way it has is because of its supply and demand. Because the block rewards and the inflation rate gets cut in half every 4 years. That's been the whole core behind why Bitcoin is valuable. So these VWAPs here really, they really throw that point home strongly that, you know, you should never go below the previous cycle's halving based on volume. So yeah.
Well, was there as much, but this is like the last thing. The previous range of time where everyone, I'm sure, was also discussing similar things, saying we got to make sure it's not below. Like, did we have enough information the previous cycle where they were like, we cannot go below the previous halving? And like, I guess is it? Are we spending so much time focusing on that as like this is a very, very important key level? Because in my head, if we do break that, then every Bitcoin maxi like right now should be very, very concerned that does not play out. Because if it does, the thesis is very much called into question, where Bitcoin is like still valuable, it's still a finite resource, it's great money, blah, blah, blah. But now the chart is showing something otherwise. And that would put me in a very interesting position because fundamentally, I look at Bitcoin, I'm like, this all makes sense. This should check out and become $1 million asset. But at the same time, if we lose these levels, now I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is true, but I got to rethink how this looks from a chart perspective, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know your exact question there, but what you said.
Basically, the question is, would it take like 10 times longer then? Because in a lot of maxis, they're like, we're a few years away, potentially, you know, within a decade of Bitcoin being absolutely unreachable. But in my head, if we lose this level, then now that timeline for me would get stretched. We get stretched like 5x because now it's untrustworthy. We have to rebuild another 20 years of trust again.
Yeah, it brings up a whole other question of is Bitcoin over? You know, is the whole concept of Bitcoin done? Is it over? You know, because Bitcoin, technically speaking, it can't last forever. Like it, you know what I mean? Like if we think ahead in hundreds of years, do we think Bitcoin is going to still be around? No, I don't think so. Like this is a experiment, in my opinion. And the experiment will last another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
You think so?
Because I believe so. Like, do we think that we're going to be in an AI driven world where we're using this hashing algorithm from 2003 where Bitcoin takes 10 minutes to work? And I don't believe it at all. Like maybe
as a peer-to-peer transaction, you mean, or are you talking as an asset, like as a thing you hold?
I mean, it's like using a BlackBerry today.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I hate to say that, but like we think we're technologically advanced right now. Give it 20 years with the pace of AI, we're going to be in movie type technological advanced. Do we think we're still going to be using a Bitcoin that has 10-minute block times and whatnot, even if it's a store of value? I don't think so. I think it needs to get forked regardless. The blockchain will need to get forked for quantum computing resistance.
I agree with that. It's possible. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Even the maxis, I think you're not going to be probably using Bitcoin the way that Satoshi maybe intended.
No.
But purely from the fact that it is just a finite resource that was dropped fairly 20 years ago or something like that. And there's every other currency out there right now, you can just print more of. There's no way to track it. I think that's why it's so attractive as an asset. But yeah, wild stuff. I think Jack says crazy fun on the future of Bitcoin. Now we're just chatting here. Let's see. We got Goku saying disagree because Bitcoin is volatile. It's too volatile to be a store of value. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, all these things are up in the air. I mean, the thing that's exciting for me at least. Yeah, what's up?
I was just going to say, this is the last thing I actually want to end with is if Bitcoin is cooked right now, why are people selling it? Why are people selling their Bitcoin? The stock market, completely understand that. Tariffs are going to kill companies' profits. You know, that's an understandably reason to sell off your equities because the equities you've been holding are now going to have their profit margins cut. Bitcoin, why are you selling your Bitcoin? If you believe in Bitcoin's future, if you believe in its characteristics, why are you selling it? You either believe it's a peer-to-peer cash, which shouldn't care about tariffs, or you believe it's a store of value with the finite supply, which shouldn't care about tariffs. So why?
That's a fair.
You know what I mean? Why are you going to sell your Bitcoin? That brings up the question of Bitcoin has failed. What is it? It's a proxy to an index of companies. I mean, what's that? You know, it has no characteristics of a company. why is it going to act like a stock market and not like gold? You know, at that point, it's like, what, you know what I mean? I guess it's the last question I'll pose. If we think Bitcoin is topped right now, for whatever your macro reason is, why are people going to continue to sell it down to 50K? Like if you hold Bitcoin right now, what is the fundamental reason to sell your Bitcoin? Is it a risk asset because its revenue is going to be cut from tariffs? No. You know, is it a peer-to-peer cash that is going to care about tariffs? No. So why are you selling your Bitcoin?
See, Daniel saying it says it's a micro market still, correlates with the market overall till a decoupling here. Maybe, I don't know. I'm so torn on it because I think for a long time it will just track with the normal markets because it's a risk asset still. I think the Bitcoin play for me, you either have it's like one of two theses. Either you have the 100-year thesis, which this will go up over time. It's just too good. Or you're just like, yeah, it seems to be running really well. It's had a really good 20-year run. It should perform pretty well and be just another asset I trade. And for those people, they're going to be selling and buying as these markets go up and down. And then we got the Maxi's crowd who says this is a fundamentally different asset compared to everything else. I'm going to hold. And I guess those people are the ones who are buying into these selling, which there are a ton of people who are doing it. It really just depends on how you view them. If you view it as an asset that you mean to trade up and down, or if you view it as an asset like gold, where you're like, dude, this is just stored in my safe. I'm not touching this thing. And there is a lot of people who are in that camp.
Well, I think anyone involved should be, because, you know, Daniel says it's a micro market, homie. It will correlate to the market overall till it decouplate. But why is it correlated? It's correlated because of traders. And why are people taking profit? Because they bought it to make money.
Yeah.
Then okay, so what is Bitcoin? That brings us back to the question: is Bitcoin a store of value? Okay, so then why are you taking profit on a store of value that should go up in a world where money is printed out of thin air? You know what I'm saying? It's like that could be the case, but then you ask yourself, what is Bitcoin then? If it's just a risk asset that is going to follow the stock market, it's failed. You know what I mean? That's not what Bitcoin was created for. It wasn't to track the price of stocks. So
I think CM Kike brings a good point here. I mean, because you're right. I understand your point here, but so CM66 says most people don't understand it fully yet. Therefore, the volatility scares them, and they're in and out. You know, and then at the top, you know, some people also understand it, and they're trading. They want to trade it both ways, and then they've got the maxis who are just buying up. I agree with you. I mean, I think in some capacity, most people don't understand Bitcoin, or they understand it. They just can't hold an asset long enough. Like I'm right there in the middle of that crowd. I do believe Bitcoin. I think there's a very high chance it could be the best performing asset of all time on a very long-term mind, or a very long-term thesis. But I'm also sitting here going, yeah, but I don't know. I'm very confident in it, but I'm like, am I confident enough to throw 85% of my net worth into it and just sit and hold, knowing that the volatility swings are going to absolutely just like cook my brain while they're up and down? That one's so tough because it's still, I think that's the main reason people can't fully buy in, is because the volatility is so crazy. Like you could go down 70% if we see the 4-year cycle play out. And they're like, dude, even if I believe in it, I can't let my net worth go down 70%. Like that's like a crazy statement to be like, let me store my money into something that's going to go through those types of swings. And I see Dan here. And by the way, Dan's shout out to Dan. He's a beast. It's great that he's in the stream here. DCA for the win. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, yeah, if you're a long-term thesis and you're trading this, or you're investing in this like the S&P or something, or you're buying into like Tesla because you're an Elon bull or something like that, then yeah, you probably, I imagine, can stomach the swings. That was tough. That's honestly like a full discussion we could probably have on a separate one.
Yeah, it's totally a full discussion. All I'm trying to say here is, if you're going to take profit on your Bitcoin because stocks are dropping, why are you holding Bitcoin? You're probably just holding it to make money. Because if you're holding Bitcoin because of its characteristics, this shouldn't be a time to be selling it. This should be a time to be holding it, because its characteristics are what this pretty much similar of what make gold valuable.
Right.
And of course, the whole peer-to-peer cash idea, I think we can all agree that's failed. Is Bitcoin going to start becoming what everybody uses to pay people and buy things? I don't think so. I mean, sorry, it's not possible. The blockchain can't handle that. And that's why I would, of course, need a new fork, or it would need a whole new hashing algorithm to compete with something like XRP. And I hate to bring it in, but XRP can be used as
Oh,
something.
now he's coming after the Bitcoiners. Now, I mean, there's the Lightning Network. People could. I just don't think people are using it. Like, I agree with
people
you.
are.
I think they
People
could.
are.
They're just not.
That's exactly right. So yeah, that's really the question I have here is like, Bitcoin's following the stock market because these companies are going to be having less profits because of tariffs. It's like, what is Bitcoin then? It's just in my opinion, it's proved that traders have hijacked Bitcoin. Its value is pegged to companies that have no characteristics like itself. And I just feel like, as time goes on, more people, if Bitcoin succeeds, they're going to hold it for its characteristics,
Right.
for the characteristics that make it valuable in a world where we've printed, trillions of dollars of money on a thin air. When you can't print Bitcoin, that's what gives it value, in my opinion. The only other thing that gives it value is people agree on the value. That's really what gives any market value. If no one cared about Bitcoin, even if it's finite, nobody's going to buy it.
Right.
It's got its value because people agree on that. And I think just all the good news that happened, the last thing I'll say to wrap it up, all the good news that's happened over the last, 3-4 months, in my opinion, that should increase the people who are buying this belief in its future. All of that news, all of the regulation, all of the acceptance by governments. Of course, it's not what Satoshi wanted and some of the biggest, I guess, Bitcoin advocates. But if you're holding this asset for its characteristics, which I think anyone is, like if you could just print Bitcoin, would you hold it? No. So why else are you holding it? You're holding it because it can't be printed and it's got a finite supply. And something like gold has proved how that has fared well.
It's like beckoning. It's like beckoning to you. It's like, how much do you believe in this thesis that even if you know it's true, like how much can you actually stomach this? Like it's like beckoning to see, like, will you be a better investor? Will you hold the way you should, kind of thing.
Totally.
Oh man.
So yeah. Let's see the last few. It blows my mind how many people are so emotional in these markets. Zoom out, we will only go up. Even if World War III happens, we eventually be much higher. Yeah, I agree. It's just when. Is it in 2 months? Is it in 6 months? Is it in a year and a half? When? Because the people that are here every day, they'd get pretty bored.
This is the power of DCAing an amount relative to your income to where it doesn't scare you that way. I agree. Yeah, if you're trying to be a better long-term investor, that is the move for sure. I mean, that's where you want to go. That's why you want to hold on to that. If you have a job in this market and you're making money, my take is you stick with that job, even if you're someone like. In the past, I've had trouble staying with jobs any longer than a year or two. If you got something that's working and you're making good money, dude, and you have like an opportunity now to invest in assets that you believe in, whether it's Bitcoin or something else, it's not a bad place to be. It may be in the COVID market or whatever market it was when like all the employees had the power and the leverage was flip flops. Like maybe you can think about job hopping and stuff. But right now, dude, it's brutal out there. Is what I've heard.
100%. And I guess the last thing I will share here, and then we'll wrap it up.
This is the final last thing, everyone. This is the final last thing. It's been a great conversation. And me and Don was not on the stream last week, unfortunately. So we're kind of catching up a little bit there. So it's always great to stream with you, by the way.
Totally. Yeah, always a great time. But I guess the last thing I'll say here is Bitcoin's immune system has gotten stronger. So the things we've talked about the last 25 minutes, some people might agree or disagree. I think it's slowly becoming truth because look at where the NASDAQ is, relatively speaking. The NASDAQ is below its August 5th low. Bitcoin would be at 44K if it was following perfectly. Bitcoin is almost 2 times higher than that. So what does that prove? That proves that people have realized that it shouldn't be perfectly correlated to companies. And I think that just goes on to what I'm trying to say here is if you're holding Bitcoin, you're holding it for one reason, in my opinion. Because nobody controls it and it's got a finite supply. If you're holding it because you just want to make money, you're still holding it, making money is still a result of those characteristics. So I think as time goes on, people will continue to start realizing it shouldn't be perfectly pegged to the stock market. And I think that's really our only hope here is, if these tariffs stay in place and companies still continue to get wrecked, most stocks will not recover for a while, in my opinion. But Bitcoin can recover because it doesn't have those headwinds that the stocks will. So I hope everybody enjoyed the stream. Absolutely great breakdown there. I hope that, it put things in perspective and I shared my thoughts pretty well.
Yeah, dude, amazing. That was really good discussion, especially towards the end there. I think that's that's a conversation worthy of a full another space or stream. So we'll have to
Yeah.
come back to that one.
Yeah, totally. It looks
Yeah,
like Daniel agreed with the last thing. So maybe
Yeah.
maybe next time you could agree with some more.
Yeah. And Dan's a smart guy. He's over there building Flux chain. We have him in a lot of our deep in spaces. So maybe
That's
we'll have to get him into a conversation here. Appreciate you coming through, Dan, by the way. And everybody else who came through, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or X. Appreciate everyone who comes through and watches these streams. We missed last week's, unfortunately, but we'll be back. I think next week should probably be fine. I fly to New York for the Tokenized conference, the Tokenize This conference, big RWA conference in New York. But I believe I land in like the morning, so I think the stream should be all good. So definitely, if you guys have any thoughts on topics or questions you guys have, definitely think about those over the next few days. We have spaces and streams every single day here at Wolf. And, Dom is doing things all the time on the timeline. He's got his own Telegram as well. So if you want to jump in there, he posts a lot of things he isn't normally posting on X. Just things just more quick updates, his thoughts on a chart, or he wants to give a take on the sentiment, vibes and stuff, but he doesn't necessarily want to make a whole tweet. Highly recommend you jump into the Telegram.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah,
Is there anything else by the way, in that Telegram you want to let people know about?
No. I just usually share some expanded thoughts or different opinions on some things that I might not share on X. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks Daniel for hopping in. Everybody else, great analysis. CM66, thanks for hopping in. And yeah, guys, hope you guys all have a great week. And maybe next stream we'll have some better things to talk about.
Let's get it. Bitcoin to $200 million. That's what's gonna happen in
perfect.
7 days. All right, guys. We'll catch you guys all in the next one. Take care.